Today we're going to be looking at our amp Witch Vex. This build is all about just one-shotting any mob that you come across. Like, it's actually crazy how hard this thing hits. Like, on some test dummies right now, I can just sit there and lay into them and be hitting each shot for like mid 800 thousands or so, like 830, 850,000. And I'm still missing some pretty big gear upgrades. I could imagine with some near perfect gear, you could be hitting over a mil per shot, and it's just insane. It is seriously insane. There's also a really cool synergy that we have with our shield, where we're going to be sending out lightning tendrils every shot, and every single shot we do is going to be amped. You get pretty good survivability as well, just because we get a ton of shields and over shields out of this build. Overall, it feels really, really good to play, and there's a couple different weapon options, but we are going to be mainly focusing in one, but you're free to swap to some other options that we're going to be talking about later in this video. If you do enjoy the build, consider subscribing for more Borderlands 4 content. We got a ton of builds on the way, but let's go ahead and jump into our amp Witch Vex. So the main thing that we're trying to achieve with this build is making sure that every single shot we shoot out of whatever gun we're using is going to be an amped shot. So we can do this when we utilize the Teen Witch class mod and any legendary shield with the amp, because that can give it the 100% gun damage. So when energy shield is full, it's going to drain 28% of your shields, but for 100% gun damage. Normally, you got to wait, but now with the Teen Witch, all of our life steal when our health is full is going to apply to our shields, and then eventually, once our shields are full, it's going to grant overshield. Now, what we can end up doing with these two is making sure every single shot we shoot is going to be amped and immediately return that damage as shields and be ready to go for our next shot. So right here, I'm going to shoot the dummy, instantly back full, and we got that amped damage. Now we can just lay in, we can be full fire and get every single shot amped with this particular weapon. There is a point where you can shoot too quick. Like, one of the first things I tried with this was the Bori SMG with the underbarrel like fire rate, and that just wasn't hitting enough per bullet to give me enough shield back for how much it was draining. So you do need something that fires slightly slower and hits fairly hard. So that's why we settled on the weapon that we're using with this build, and that is the bod. This is one of the strongest weapons in the game, in my opinion. It counts as essentially every single weapon type. So shotgun, assault rifle, sniper rifle, pistol, and SMG. We're going to be utilizing this fact very hard with our enhancement, because our enhancement is some of the other biggest damage increases that we can get. Because essentially in this game, everything is additive for the most part. Where we're going to get big multipliers is with our amps, and then also damage on our enhancements. So we see we have pistol damage and sniper rifle damage. Those are going to be in their own separate bracket. Ideally, you would have 3 of these. So you'd have like pistol, sniper, assault rifle, or shotgun. Doesn't really matter with the bod. You can use any combination. So it does make the RNG a little bit better. And it really doesn't matter what enhancement it comes on either. So right here, this is on a Vladoff underbarrel cooldown, which is doing nothing for me. I'm simply using it just because it's giving me so much damage. Ideally, you're going to be looking for something with like Daedalus that will give you some rate of fire. And there is one for a little bit extra damage depending on how much ammo you have left, which could be really good for bossing. Either of those would be like your best bet in terms of enhancements. But that's pretty much everything that's going on. The other really cool thing is there aren't a ton of shields that are like super crazy good for this build, but we do have a nice little synergy with the Sparky shield. So while the energy shield is not full, it periodically shocks nearby enemies. So here you can see it's not full. Eventually here, sorry, I got to aggro it. You can see it sends out a tendril, but it does take a little bit, but between times it can go out. But if we refill our shield and break it again, then that cooldown is basically gone. So when we're shooting full on at an enemy, we have just constant tendrils coming out. Now, they don't do a ton of damage. Like, it's only 636 on this guy because he's flesh, but it can be really nice for helping you strip some shields of enemies that are nearby as you're running around mobbing, and also can help you proc kill skills if you are willing to use a crit knife. So if you use a crit knife, all of these tendrils are now going to be crits and can help you stack up your kill skills much quicker, as opposed to just shooting the bod. Between those two together, you can essentially instant fill all of your kill skills and completely ramp up your damage very, very fast. So it's a nice little synergy that we can take advantage of, considering the legendary shields in this game. There's not too many that are going to be helping out with this build. Basically, how I came up with this is I was trying to do this exact thing with the extra medium, but it ends up working out not quite right. I think you have to completely break the shield for that Nova to go off, and then completely refill it after for it to go off. it wasn't working with the amp, but that was originally how this build started. But I noticed, we're just doing insane damage, and there's a lot of ways we can take advantage of the damage formula with this and the bod. So I threw it all together, and we end up outputting just ridiculous damage. Quickly showing it off here on the dummy. If we are stacking Witchy Trigger Finger and just laying in, we can ramp up our damage so high. We're already hitting 700-something thousand, 800,000 already, 820,000. So you can get really high damage. And once again, that is with missing pretty big damage increases here on our enhancement. It wouldn't be surprised if I found a perfect enhancement if we're approaching 1 million per shot with this build. So lots of damage to be had, and there's some really cool synergies going on, but let's take a look at everything else you need for the build. Now, for some of the really big skills in the build, the Teen Witch can roll that red passive that I have with the teeth. That's a +3. If we take a look at what that actually is here, it is called Grave Thirst. So this is a kill skill. Vex and her minions gain lifesteal for a duration. This is going to be stacking up quite a bit for us, giving us a ton of lifesteal. Ideally, you want +5 of that on your class mod. But that is going to be playing into our green tree down here with Blood is Power. We get bonus kinetic damage with our guns based on our lifesteal while our health is full. Obviously, our life is going to be full with this build. So that is just so much extra bonus kinetic damage that we're taking advantage of there. And we pair that as well with Essence Leech. So we get, more lifesteal while our action skill is active, even more. And then we also have more lifesteal up here with Leeching and Attunement. All of those together are going to be a huge damage bonus here with Blood is Power. Then we're using a lot of kill skills, and we can utilize that on a single target with Mortal Terror. Between all of our bod projectiles and the Sparky Shield chains, once again, we can essentially insta-stack them to their caps right away upon fighting a boss if we're willing to utilize a crit knife. But even without the crit knife and the Sparky Shield chains, you can reach the caps very quickly just because we get extra projectiles with the bod, since it is technically a shotgun. Then we can stack up our damage even further with Witchy Trigger Finger and also Vibe Check. Vibe Check is really only going to be good for multiple enemies because it's going to rebound. But once again, Witchy Trigger Finger is going to reload our gun so we never have to stop shooting. And it's going to be stacking up a ton of gun damage for us. So all of those things end up playing really well together, and we can support it with some extra fire rate here when we're dealing gun damage. That's just overall a big DPS increase. Increasing our kill skill stacks by 3. That's going to be very helpful for a lot of these. Like, for example, Grave Implements. This normally stacks to 3, so it essentially doubles Grave Implements. We get 20% gun damage per stack, but now that's stacking up to 6 times. So you can see how quickly that goes crazy. Grave Sights, same thing. It's going to be giving us 15% critical hit damage per stack, stacking up to 3 times, but now 6 times. So it's just so much crit damage. Also, Lazy Data made a whole video going over the damage formula in the game, and it's seeming like critical hit damage things in skill trees specifically, these are actually granting like double. So this is essentially 30% crit damage a stack, which is kind of crazy. And then we can obviously have our lifesteal. And then another thing that I'm utilizing, just because we have so much additive damage already, is just popping a rep kit, and we get movement speed and fire rate. It makes farming a lot easier and really helps out our DPS increase. Our final 2 points that we're utilizing with this build is just Grave Sustenance to keep our Incarnate up essentially all the time. If you're running a dig site, anything like that, the drill sites, you're going to have your Incarnate up. 1 point felt like too little, and I was kind of running out at the end of the dig site. And then 3 points seemed a little overkill, so I kind of settled on 2 and ended up working out fairly well for anything we need. If Incarnate does go down, you can get it back with our Specializations and our rep kits. Now, finishing looking at the rest of our gear, once again, the bod is going to be our main weapon. There's nothing even special you really need for this. This is essentially just how the bod comes. The main thing you're going to look for is the secondary fire consumes sniper rifle ammo. That above and beyond just does the most damage. So here in shotgun mode, you can see we hit, like 145,000. I swapped to the sniper mode, 315,000. It makes a really, really big difference what fire mode you get. So ideally, look for the sniper rifle ammo. The other like random things that you could potentially roll on here, like a COV mag could be very good. There is, I think you can get Torgue stickies. I know you can get Torgue gyro jets. The Torgue gyro jets are decent, but you can end up blowing yourself up a lot. I don't really find it necessary, but if you can get a Torgue sticky, that could be insane for some bossing stuff, just in addition to having a normal one. But for general play, I would just use a normal one or potentially a COV mag on there. Other weapons you can utilize with this build would be the complex root, but you do need the like Jacobs and then Atlas part. So this itself isn't going to be doing much. If you do hit them with the Atlas part and then kind of barrel stuff them, then all of the projectiles it shoots out end up just kind of like going into a singularity, and you can one-shot bosses with it. It's insane like how much damage you can actually output with this. So it's kind of fun to mess around with. But overall, really the only thing you need is the bod. The Katagawa's is fairly decent as well, but just play around with some different options. Anything that, you know, doesn't fire way too quick and hits pretty hard is going to end up working out fairly well with this. This isn't limited to just like shotguns or snipers, anything like that. For the rep kit, I like to just run an accelerator and then either amp or potentially a fire rate option would be good there, or the enrage where you deal increased damage but take more damage. Any of those could be decent with accelerator. I just like accelerator because if my incarnate does go down, I just pop 2 of these and it's guaranteed to come back. If I space them out by, I don't know, like 3-4 seconds, it'll be enough to where I guarantee get it back. And then once again, the crit knife is not necessary for this build at all. All this does is make it so you don't have to try to aim. So if you're super lazy and you have one, just throw it on. You can just, you know, shoot them anywhere. But if you don't have this, you can still play this build. It's not really going to change anything except for needing to aim, and then also the Sparky Shield stacking up stacks. So there's virtually no difference. You can mess around with like the fire pot if you want. If you don't want to use the crit knife. The Teen Witch, like I said, just go for the lifesteal skill with the fangs there as your ideal role. You could just do like gun crit chance if you don't want to use the knife. Anything like that is going to be pretty good on the class mod. You don't have to be too picky except for +5 into the lifesteal skill. Sparky Shield, just get amp. Anything else on it is completely your choice. And then once again on the enhancement, just look for pure damage. Not crit damage, by the way. No crit damage, anything like that. Specifically, weapon type damages, so pistol, sniper rifle damages, or generic gun damage are going to be the things you want. You're going to want 3 of those on there for the most damage possible. And then look for it on like dataless fire rates or damage increase, depending on how much ammo you have in reserves. Either of those are going to be good. Or if you want, you don't really need the like main effect of the enhancement to be for the bod. You could do it to like Jacobs, so it helps out your roots and Katagawas a bit if you want. Like you can do crit chance, ricochets, anything like that are going to be good to go. Quickly going over the firmware, I just run 3 Deadeye and 2 bullets to spare. Deadeye is nice because we get a ton of extra crit damage, and then bullets to spare gives us a little bit more in the magazine to give us a little bit more leeway on our witchy trigger finger and making sure we never actually have to reload. Because once you start the reload, you do have to finish it. You can't just like witchy trigger finger to stop it. So as long as you make sure you get that witchy trigger finger off, you'll be good to go on continuing to hold down the fire button. For our specializations, not anything too crazy. Basically what I'm using on most things, and that is bullet train, so we can hip fire while we're sprinting. This thing is so accurate, like while you're running around, it is crazy. I never ADS with it. You can kill people from so far away with it. It just feels so good to use as you're running around sprinting. So I really do like bullet train. And then I like to do now with caffeine, just so we can make sure our incarnate is always up no matter what. Then I like to run riddle you this. This is a lot of extra gun damage, 50%. You're going to be stacking this very quickly. And then finally, I've just been using one shot, one kill. Because we are one-shotting things, we can store some of that damage. And for our next target, help you take out some badasses in guaranteed one shot, even if you miss a little bit with some projectiles. So I do like one shot, one kill. You can also mess around with like the best defense if you'd like as well. But we already have like a ton of additive damage. So I've just been running one shot, one kill, and I've found out that works pretty well. So I'm just going to walk you guys through how I play this build here on UVH5 in a vault really quick. I usually start out any mobbing section in there. And you can just start straight up one-tapping. Basically, the only limiting factor with how quick you can clear is how quick you can find your new target and aim at them. It's really it. Like, you just one-shot from so far away. And I don't even have witchy trigger finger stacked. Like, if I stack this up, like, you can see, you basically just one-shot everything. If I had, you know, one more stack of witchy trigger finger, like, he's just going to be dead there. Also, I'm pretty sure he was preventing me from amping because he was a black hole as well. So... and we still did that much damage, so you can see how ridiculous they can actually get. And my incarnate is still full. just with 2 points into that red tree skill. So that's why I really like to run that. And overall, you just one tap literally everything. And it clears so quick. It is ridiculous how good this setup is. Like, we're even in this next zone with our Incarnate still active. We'll probably lose it here just because it's drained so much. I don't think we can kill quite quick enough to keep it going. But worst case, we just pop a couple rep kits and it'll be back in a few seconds, which here I'll be able to show you once it goes away. So now that's gone. I pop a rep kit, already down to 20 seconds. If I give it a few more and then pop my second rep kit, that'll bring us right to the 8 seconds, which is going to be enough for our accelerator. And we're going to be able to get Incarnate back, just like that. And we can just keep going. If you want to use a crit knife, you can. If you don't want to aim, you know, you'll be fine. Don't need it, and it just shreds. I mean, there's a lot of times the crit knife actually slows down my kills because I could have just killed them in the time it took me to throw the knife. So there's a lot of drill site stuff. Like, I just don't even throw a knife ever. I basically just use it for bossing, so I can make sure, you know, it's very consistent kills in case I was to miss a crit or anything like that. And these enemies, like those bulkheads, are pretty tanky. And you can just kill them in 1 to 2 shots, depending on, you know, how many stacks and things like that you have. And it's just clearing very quickly. On this platform, we'll even get to some Vile enemies. So I was pretty shocked. Normally, Vile enemies, I use a lot of splash damage just because it makes killing their crystals much easier. But when you can just one tap the crystals, essentially, it's basically the same. Like, it's genuinely basically the same as a splash weapon. So this build in taking out Vile enemies, like, really surprised me. I did not expect it to be that good at taking them out. We're going to be back into our Incarnate here, and we should be getting a Vile here. Yeah, there's one right around the corner. So here he is. We can just aim at his, you know, crystals here and break them in, you know, a couple shots. Boom, and Vile enemy's gone. Like, the biggest part is just your aim. That is the biggest limiting factor with this build, and making sure, you know, you remember to reload with Witchy Trigger Finger. But the shotgun aspect of it, like where you're shooting out multiple projectiles, is very forgiving on the Vile crystals. So you can aim just, you know, kind of close, and it'll still end up hitting them, and it works out really well for taking them out. And we're just going to jump straight into the Radix fight here, just so I can show you, like, it's not like I'm cherry picking any sort of boss fights. Like, it really is just that easy. I go into here, I can pop a rep kit for some fire rate even, and then I'm just going to throw my knife, start shooting, shoot out my Witchy Trigger Finger so I don't have to reload, and he's dead. He's just dead. Like, it's that easy to play. It's very, very consistent across all bosses, even some of the squirrely ones. Like, we were farming Shadow Pelt on this build, and the only time it ever got weird is sometimes the bod could launch him, like you just ragdoll, and that's what would make the fight take a while, is just because I would launch him and I'd have to find him and continue tracking him to shoot him. But everything else, like, it's completely free to kill a boss. But hopefully you guys have a good time putting this build together. It's really not too difficult getting all the different pieces. The hardest part by far is going to be the enhancement with as much damage as you can, and that's also going to make some of the biggest difference in the build. So if you're ever wondering why you're not doing the exact same damage as me, make sure on your enhancement you have at least like double damages for the different weapon types, because that's 38% a piece on there. And we could potentially get 3 of them, and in addition, we could get one with a primary effect. So this can be a big difference in your damage based on your enhancement. So before you ask me, make sure that thing is good to go. But yeah, good luck farming. Thank you guys for watching this far in the video. I really do appreciate it. If you want to come back for more Borderlands 4 builds, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But anyways, hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next video. See ya.